very much. Yeah, I know a lot of times moderators watch the film before they get this. I decided I needed to experience it in real time with my family here. And so I need a moment. How many people need like a moment? Yes. Yeah. It was powerful. The whole, I mean, all of the settings together were just as powerful. So I'm gonna be, we are in the hall, and this stand-up actress, improviser, stand-up comedian, writer, first time filmmaker, daughter, par excellence. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have, you know, there are so many ways to tell stories about difficult conversations, and both of you, as writers and as folks who have experienced really a transition that's unlike any other. I think that I'm in the medical field, and it's the coolest of diseases. It's cruel. It's just cruel. And how did you? I'll start with you. In your story, which is fictional, which brought in a lot of the same subject matter, but in fiction, was it easier for you to write it as a fiction than to actually talk about your own actual experience with your family member? And why did you choose fiction over a documentary source?
So let me think about that. So I'm a narrative filmmaker, and first I wanted to make a story about the water crisis first in Jackson. And so like I had a grant through Panavision that I had to use. They gave me 2 years to use it, and I was okay. I need another. I went off a previous film. I was okay. I need a story that I can tell this on. And the crisis had just happened, kind of while I was dealing with that, and so I was always it was in the back of my mind. And I was also watching my mother care for my grandmother at the time, and so these things kind of evolved together. And I just think for me, so I wasn't there during the crisis. I was very fearful for my family who was in Mississippi at the time, and I was always, trying to see what was going on. And they lived like 5 minutes outside of Jackson, and then that's when I realized that the crisis was like an environmental injustice situation, because it was only targeting the city of Jackson, which is a predominantly black city, and so. Through that, I was able to reconcile with that. Okay, I do want to tell the story, but I wasn't there at the time. So using narrative allowed me to kind of transcend back in time and kind of tell a story about people that are affected, and then on the caregiving aspect, just showing how a lot of people are not given the same amount of luxury to even go through life's obstacles. So everyone has to go through that obstacle of caring for someone through hard times, and then when you have to put in an environmental crisis over it, it just catapults things. And also, I think narrative actually gave me the opportunity to provide visual poetry. And so, there's the scene when she's outside on the swing, and then it's really a moment where the reversal of roles is starting to impact her. And that's a moment that a lot of people don't really reconcile. You just kind of see people in the act, but you won't realize my life is about to change. And I feel like that was something special, just to kind of show her being in the backyard, hearing music, hearing just the sounds of just where she grew up and everything she loved about this environment, and then just being able to be faced with the reality of what is about to happen with her life at that point. So I think that's just something unique with narrative. Documentary also has this beautiful thing, just to be able to be there and explore with someone. And a lot of what I saw in our week's film just kind of brought me right back to watching my grandmother firsthand. So it's both of them have the same emotional impact, but you're able to tell them two different types of unique aspects.
And seeing how they impact each other, and how everyone's situation is very, very different. And so you're an extremely rare your position as filmmaker and subject. And that had been tough, difficult. What was it like, making something together where one of you was also actually living the story. Like, how did you manage that emotionally? How did you manage that technically in writing the film?
I would say a lot of it is because when we went into the pandemic, I had to like film it myself. So that's when I became like part of the cinematography as well. But what my relief from that is like the confessionals that's in the documentary, those like one-on-ones. Those were not planned to be in the documentary. I was just fed up and like I couldn't just call my therapist. So I was like, I gotta get this out. Like this is how I feel. And it would make me feel better. And I think I was talking to my stepmom and she was like, I can't take it off because she had this happy where she won't be happy all the time. I don't know, I don't know, talk to the phone. So that kind of just started helping me filter out what's going on. And I started this documentary by just posting videos of me and my dad on social media, just like dancing or like listening to music. And people would be like, I love to see this. I'm like, they love caregiving? This is crazy. So that's how I started making a documentary. So I just felt like I kind of had to because people around me were like, out of all the content that I would put up, they like this. Out of all the jokes I do, they like this. You know what I mean? So it's like the only way I had to connect with people because I felt so alone doing it. Like, and the first time I told my jokes, someone came to the audience, did not look anything like me. And was like, I just took care of my grandma. I'm like, oh, this is like helping me. So kind of just keep sharing my story and help me in a very awkward way. Thank you.
So, Brittany, you know, as your co-director, Brittany, who was unable to be with us, unfortunately, how did you approach the ethics of the documentation? Because there are people, I would imagine, that would wonder, is this okay to put this out there? And our whole culture is that the family business be staying in the house. And that's very real, that you don't want often to have your business out there. But you had made a statement that this story was not just for you. And so how did you have to address that issue along the way about the ethics of this kind of a film?
Not really. Brittany is a beautiful person. She's not here because her wife just had a baby early, so she just had a baby boy, which was not due for another 2 months, but the film was coming, so the baby had to come. That's my thing. But when I met Brittany, I met her, she was the director of photography, and I was the production assistant. And I met her lab, which is crazy. DP's on the lab. So I got to be cool with her, and I told her, like, hey, I want to make this documentary about my father. And she was normally doing short films and narrative, but Brittany lost her father very, very young. Like, before I don't even think she was able to even meet her father. And she was like, you know, I want to make a documentary, and this is important. And the first time she filmed at my house, we were like, okay, I was like, I just want to do some short videos, put them on the internet, and help somebody. And when she came over, she was like, I can watch you and your dad and Charmaine all day. You have something way more than just throw this out there, and I'm gonna stick this out with you. So it was really cool because Brittany lives on the north side of Chicago, to like bring it to the south side. So it's like, now everybody's like, wait a minute, that's Brittany. I'm like, yeah, all black artists, you know who Brittany is. So it was very cool to bring her in and just kind of watch it together. Because I'm not a film, this is my first film. So she had the background. So it was like her bringing me into a space that was very new to me. So she was real step by step, and then we started kind of learning together. She was like, even on with the film school, they don't teach you what to do. I'm like, that's crazy, but we know that.
and bringing your whole self into a production is always the power. It's really the secret sauce. So I'm curious, as a fiction, do you feel that you had enough space to bring your whole self in, especially in the scenes? There are a couple of scenes that were just heart-wrenching because I knew that there are whole societies, whole neighborhoods that would never have dirty water like that coming out of a faucet, and having to boil every drop of the water to make a pot of rice. Those were stories that you told, that you brought to the production. How did you get yourself really centered into those scenes? Were they scenes that you remembered from, if you're not from that area?
I'm from Jackson.
You've done okay, so did you bring in things that you've experienced to help you really center it around your own personal story, even though it's fiction?
A lot of the scenes, just the caregiving aspect was just watching my mother and my grandmother, just like, you know, I live in Los Angeles now, so a lot of times there were things that were being told to me, but then when I would come home for holidays, these things that I would see. And, you know, I remember there was a specific day when me and my wife was in my room, and like, all I heard was like this thump. And I hear my mother yelling, and so I immediately just like jumped out of bed, and like, my grandmother fell. And so I was able to like pick her up very quickly and get her there, but that moments like those kind of like stuck with me, because it was like, okay, how often does this happen? You know, could I have stopped the deterioration of this from having just from being here? So like you kind of have a little guilt because you're living your own life. And so like, a lot of things that I'm just kind of just playing back in my mind, just trying to put them in the film. With the water crisis, like I said, I wasn't there during it, but I researched so much, I spoke to so many people that was there. Like when I was speaking with my mom, she said like things like this went back to like the 90s. Like my grandma was boiling water in the 90s. Like I didn't know that was going on. I was just drinking water. So like this a lot of it just happened just through, if we just being real, like a lot of people, they call it white flight. They left the city at a certain time, and so like nobody came back to the infrastructure. And I remember my wife's first time coming to Jackson. We were the second time we were buried my aunt, and she was in an old cemetery in Jackson. And we were driving through town, and it was just so much abandoned buildings. Like there was just grocery stores, everything was abandoned. She was like, does anybody know what's going on? Or why does everything just look so destitute? And it was just like, people leave. Like sometimes there's no opportunity, so people leave and people are not giving back to the cities. So when we don't get back to the cities, climate change is undefeated. That's gonna attack any city. It's gonna attack the infrastructure of a city that has people that are black. And so these things are just stories that were coming that I just had to live with. And then I'm seeing my family, I'm seeing people still deal with it. Like even if you want to try to run away from these things, like you still have to be faced with it. Like when I'm a Jackson State fan, so when Deion Sanders was our coach, we were watching him coach the team, but it's like he's telling people, I mean, my boys ain't got water right now. So like you want to watch the game, but you still faced with the realities of what's going on. So these are just personal stories, and I just related to things that I watched firsthand and how it affected me. Because there were people that couldn't leave their homes, that they had to have people come deliver water to them, and like those people are heroes in themselves, and they're caregivers in themselves, because they went out of their way to help other people. So I just want to tell these two stories accordingly. Yeah.
You brought up there's so many layers here to unpack, because you have the caregiver and then you have the person that's being cared for. And the scene where you allowed us to hear what he was hearing through the hearing aid, powerful, because it's almost you're thinking one thing and the person's hearing another. And there's a moment there where it seemed like they clicked, the communication actually happened. And I'm just curious about that piece, and also in your film, in terms of really being able to communicate with a person that is disappearing. That is truly what's happening there. They are all those things that grounded them in who they are, who you are to them, as that's disappearing. How did you know you were actually communicating, or did it at one point not matter? It was your presence. Because it seemed there were times it was a struggle between, put your hands on, but you need to put your hands, and was he hearing that or not? And did it really matter, or was the caring, the actual caring, that really held everybody together at that moment?
I think it's the understanding, and being empathetic. Like I always tell my mom, like she will get frustrated, and I'm like, you're allowed to get frustrated. But you kind of have to know what battle is won and what's not. Okay, we're communicating this sentence, and she's hearing me. All right, next sentence. All right, she's gone. All right, that's a loss. Let's just keep on the path. So it's like you want to allow yourself to get frustrated with the fact that the communication is not it's not continuous, but you still have to understand what situation that they're in and put yourself there. So you have to know, like, okay, every sentence is not going to be a win. Let's just do what we can. So like, that was something that was, you know, I even have a video on my phone that was me and my grandma just trying to talk. Like it was after her 100th birthday, and I was trying to speak to her, and it took me like a minute before she actually was understanding what was going on, and then like, we finally started talking, and she went away, came back. So you just have to just kind of just put yourself in their shoes and just know that that's what it is.
And if you could talk about that, because that's the whole point of your problem.
Yes, I would say it was kind of difficult with my dad at first, just having to, I guess the first thing is acceptance. Like, I'm accepting that this person is not going to be who they've always been. And then the improv really helped me because, like when I first started improv, it's normally a white male-dominated thing. So you are like normally I was like a person placed on a white male-dominated team. It's just what that common field is. And then I was like, if I can work with them and they can understand me, I can talk to my baby. Because it's frustrating because I want them to understand the things that I grew up with and things like that. But I'm like, we're on stage, and I have to remember, none of that matters. What matters to our audience is if we're having fun. It don't matter if they know about what I knew in the 90s. It matters is if I'm listening to my teammates and having fun, and the audience is looking at that as having fun. And then when I would get with my dad, I would be like, do you really gotta have those pants on today? No. He don't, you know what I mean? Like, so I started giving up time when I was with him. Like, this does not have to be done right now. And then I would give up what I wanted. This is what he wants. What do he want to talk about? What is he looking at? What does he want to do? And I started using that same thing when I deal with other older people in my family. Like, I have an aunt that is, well, she passed away, but she was like in her 90s before she died. And she would want to sing the same song over and over, and people would get frustrated and annoyed, and it would just be like, I would come in there and I would sing it to her when I'm walking in the house, and she'd be like, what's going on? I'm like, it's me, you know? So it started just giving me a way to kind of just go along with it. And when I would get frustrated with my dad, I would just take some time away, like what you said. You're allowed to be frustrated. Like, I'm a person. This is hard. Nobody else is doing it. Like, my favorite scene in the film is when I'm like, walk on eggshells, bitch, when you're talking to a caregiver. And that's because I feel like until you do it, people don't realize how hard it is. And when you're outside, like, it was hard for me to go places and talk to people if they're not a caregiver. Because you don't know what I'm talking about. You're just talking about regular life, and it's not this, my life is not that, you know. So it started giving me, improv just started helping me open up, and then just accepting that this is who this person is, and it's not about what I want. No matter what he wants, I'm gonna give him that in this situation and give him that time. Like you said, if it take us 5 minutes to figure out what you're talking about, I'm gonna sit here. As long as you focus and we paying attention, then that's given. Or even just honoring the silence. And that's why I learned to caregiver for him. Sometimes silence is key. People don't have to talk. But as long as your energy is good, that works.
Yeah, thank you. And you had mentioned something in passing. You said that you felt guilt, the feeling of guilt. Can you both expound a little bit on that? Because what does caregiving look like for each of you? And how many times do people have an image of it? I'm going to take care of this person. I'm going to get this person straight, as opposed to, you know, whatever. Let's just go with the flow. But what is tell me a little bit about the guilt aspect. What can you expound on that?
I think it was just like knowing that I probably could have made a difference, a little more. Like, I think my mom, she did the best, and I know like it's really not much that I could have done. Like, I can't be guilty for living my life, but it was just the aspect of where I was like, it's like, damn, if I was here, I'd pick her up like this. Like, cause like what actually happened was that resulted in my grandmother's death. Like, she was already like 102. She fell and broke her femur, and I just saw her for like Mother's Day. It was like 3-4 years ago, and she fell and broke her femur, and then from there she's like bones just weren't acting the way they're supposed to no more, and like she pretty much didn't walk again. So she was bed rest for the rest of that time, and you know, she was in hospice, and then went over the allotted days or whatever they say in Medicare, and so they brought her home, and I just think like, I was like, man, what about there? Like, she probably wouldn't have fallen, or she probably would have used me to help her get around. And so like that's usually the guilt that I have. But like, some people always say that, or my mom says that, you know, she already lived like a full life. Like she was 104 when she passed away, and so she saw so much. I think the biggest guilt thing was like, I had, my son was born the year she passed, and they missed each other by like 5 months. Like he was born in April, she died in September, and I was literally trying to have them meet each other like that fall. And so that's like, the first time that I was in front of her with him, she was in the casket. So like that really kind of messed me up. And so like that was some of the guilt that came with it. It's just like you want to be able to share your life and what you brought into this earth with people that raised you. Because like my mom, she was always working. My grandma was picking me up from elementary and all these things. And so that's really the guilt that I had. But it's like you kind of have to just kind of sit with life and just understand that these things just kind of happen. I can't beat myself up for pursuing my own goal. The only thing I can do now is continue to tell her story. And so now I'm out here in Boston. She ain't never been in Boston. Y'all saw the picture at the end. So it's like I'm just sharing her joy and what she meant to me with everybody else. I think that's kind of the most important thing I can take from the guilt that I was feeling.
That's amazing. I really love your film. And I connect, of course you know I connected, but for it to be a narrative, I was like, is that me in that? Oh my God. Like, so it's just such a transparent piece. And to guilt, I would say I felt a lot of guilt initially because I was a caseworker. So I'm like helping other people, helping seniors, and I would be too tired when I got home to even go see my kid. And I was just like, okay, I gotta do something. And my mother's mother had Alzheimer's, so I knew what it looked like. Like she did not know who I was by the time I was 7. So I was like, I want to do this for my dad. And then what was crazy is like right after my dad died, then my stepfather had Alzheimer's, and he was like, he ended up going in. I couldn't bring him home, like so he ended up going into a home, and then the guilt was like we didn't have him at home with us. But then it gave me the acceptance of being a caregiver when they're not in the home. Just because they're not there with you does not mean that you aren't providing care. Like you're going to see them, you're going to do these things. So it gave me a different aspect on caregiving and then being an advocate. And then when he died, I'm like, well, I could have probably had him, but I just feel like what I had to learn is that we are all aging and we all need help. So like when I say like this story is not just my story, like I talk to people every day, like everybody needs help. Like even with your story, like I brought light to the water situation. Like that stuck out to me from the jump. I'm like, I remember when we were sending water to Flint, Michigan. You know what I mean? Like so it's problems that people have beyond belief. So I just try to stay rooted in I'm doing what I can. And then also let people know what I'm doing in my workshops or stories. Like everybody grieves differently. Everybody does not have it. Most people are not set up to provide a life for someone to care for them. It's just what it is. It is like most people are I think in America 1 out of 4 people is an unpaid caregiver. So it's not set up for us to do that. So I guess the biggest thing I try to even pass on is for people not to feel guilty for not being able to do that because it's very, very, very hard.
And the guilt is real. Yeah, the guilt is real. There's a lot of attention on the individual with the disease, and there needs to be, but we often do forget the life that is changed 180-degree turn, and to be so young and to dedicate in a beautiful way to the care of others. It is a lot, and you know, it is real. I'm just going to talk about some statistics here. We're talking, you know, Black Americans are twice as likely as non-Hispanic white Americans to develop Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. Among Black Americans ages 70 and older, 21.3% are living with Alzheimer's disease. only 18%, I didn't realize this, only 18% of Asian Americans are even aware of mild cognitive impairment, making it hard for individuals and families to actually recognize the symptoms and to seek care. The movie, it's unfortunate that the director for the writer, Gloria, was not here, but I didn't realize these statistics. Asians in California has experienced the most significant rise in Alzheimer's deaths between 2000 and 2018. California is considered a bellwether for national trends. And these numbers they're surprising, but yet not, I think, because of some of the other environmental factors that come into play with people's environment and how that contributes to probably the development of the disease in a lot of ways. Okay, but also the ability to be a caretaker. And so knowing that there's a disproportionate impact, they're less likely to receive that early diagnosis. And what does that disparity look like from where you sit? And what do you want these films to actually do about the whole disparity, these numbers, where we are seeing whole groups of people that are affected way more than others? Do you hope that these films are going to address that? And in what way?
Yes, I'm definitely hoping sure that the film not only addresses that, I really hope it promotes joy through caregiving, and also because those numbers are like crazy like that. When I was growing up, it wasn't even called dementia Alzheimer's; it was called going senile. If anybody remember that? That's what it was back then. She was senile. So that makes sense on why people are not being diagnosed. They may not even really know, and it's such a hard disease to even really see. Like, it was a few years before I realized that my daddy was not himself, if that makes sense. So it's just, I'm really hoping that people are able to see what it looks like. We don't talk about aging a lot. We don't talk about how many of us are taking care of someone. And I'm hoping that it brings some kind of light to it. Like, because as caregivers, we deal with so much, and sometimes you just gotta laugh at, you know, the darkness. Like, when he farted in the tub, I'm like, right, because it's funny. I ain't got nothing else left but this giggle, and it's stinking. Give me 5 minutes, you know? But it's so real because when you are a caregiver, you only have those moments, and it just the permission to laugh at something that's just going bad.
I think there's a lot of weaponizing in the healthcare. I think the most part that you can do as an artist is to continue to raise awareness so that, you know, bills are passed and things of these natures. Because there's things I was learning about just going through this whole process with my grandmother and doing this film. It's like, okay, why do you have a certain allotment of days that you're in, and then you have to pay out of pocket for some fees, and then there's like the organization of the patient care. It's like, okay, if they reject their care, you can't do nothing with them. So then all of a sudden it's like, okay, what kind of position are you putting them in? Because they probably don't even know what's going on just because you accepted their rejection. Now they're not getting the proper care. So those are like tricky avenues that I would like for us to bring awareness to, just to see, like, to have a conversation, see how those things can be addressed. And then I think just something for caregivers in general, just through her story, and like my mom had to retire early for this. So it was like all these things, there needs to be some type of, you know, I don't even know what it is.
Fund. Reparations.
Some type of payment, some type of way you can hook it up through medical terms that you can provide for caregivers. So I think all those things are important.
And they need like caregivers. I know we have a month, but we need some real record, you know, some real acknowledgement for what we do. I really would like that. Some real acknowledgement across the board.
I know, probably another question, we want to make sure that we are wrapping up and kind of giving our audience an opportunity to ask questions. So we can, I think we've covered most of the topics. Is there any last minute plug that you, before we open it up to the audience to ask you, but any last minute things that you want to say, that you want to take home?
You all were the first audience to watch it. So thank you so much. I do have filmmakers. So please, please, please stay subscribed and follow the journey. Not only am I hoping for the film to be, of course, this beautiful film and share with people, but I also teach improv for caregiver workshops. That's my baby. I love to talk to caregivers all day about trying to add humor to what they're doing. So those are the two things that I'm plugging right now.
Same here. Y'all the first non-family members to watch it. We're growing. We're starting on the festival circuit, and I'm still writing other projects. But anybody wants to update about this film, and if you know someone that might like it outside of this area, and stay updated with my social media. I'm on Instagram. If anybody's on social media, Edward_Worthy on Instagram, and you can catch me afterwards if you want any type of personal links or anything like that.
Great, so we will open the floor for questions.
Does anybody have a question or a comment that they want to make?
Thank you. Sorry, I would have gone if I knew it was for me. Yeah, thank you guys so much for the films that you shared. It was so awesome. I'm so struck by how there was humor and comedy found in both of them. So I'm just wondering if you guys have any advice for us as like artists and as humans. Like we're all going through some really crazy shit right now. How to use comedy and humor to directly deal with things that are really not funny and really tragic. And like joy is radical, but like it can be even more radical if we like directly address things. So just looking for advice as filmmakers and people.
My wife always tells me I'm too comical in serious moments. I try to always find some type of humor in it because there's a lot that's always going on, and so like I always just try to figure out a way to try to lighten the mood just in personal life, just when things are going on. So I think bringing that to your artistry is just looking at like what type of situation are you writing about, what's a moment here that might make you feel joyful even through the sorrow and the pain of it. So I had the fart scene that was the real shit that happened with us. It was like you should have been trying to have a serious moment, and you should have been passing gas throughout the whole house. It was like these are things you should try to take from. So if you just have a moment that you feel is sad, that you're doing a song or painting anything about it, and you just figure out like what would make me smile at this moment. And I feel like that's kind of how you can kind of train your brain to that.
Yeah, I would agree. I would also say a lot of comedy comes from like truth. So when you're thinking about like actual real situations, like do you turn on the news in the morning? I know it's crazy. But when I do, I look at the news. I look at our president, what's going on. I be like, wow, it's 8 a.m. I gotta go through the rest of the day. This only happened at 8 a.m. Well, let me give myself a laugh about that. We gotta wait till 1 o'clock. See what's gonna go down me. So I mean, I try to just be honest with myself. I'm not the person that you sit next to at the funeral unless you want to laugh. But very big on like truth and recognition and being in a moment is what helps. Because sometimes what you made, like I said, I didn't even know. I do this joke about my daddy running away from me probably every time I get on stage. I was crying about that when it really happened. I literally did cry on the phone to them. But what was funny about it was that it was actually a story. So the fact that you're an artist and you can make a story out of something typically is what gets people anyway. Where you're able to actually tell me something complete about this situation, and then you'll end up finding humor in there because the truth is just, you can't make it up. So I would just say look for those moments and being real with yourself. And like you said, your wife calls you comical because you probably just be making that face like, look, we gotta go this room down south. You know what I mean? But it's just being honest, and I think that's what really helps it when you're not trying to think that hard, but being honest about what you really feel, and then the humor stuff will come after you write it out.
to first start by saying thank you so much for sharing your stories, both of you. And it's like, my belief is like nothing is by chance. You know, so it's my experience. I'm actually living this right now. My mom, she's been bedridden for about 4 years with, you know, really bad arthritis. And just recently, last week, unbeknownst to anyone in the family, that she has been saying for the past couple months, I would say really as long as like maybe 3-4 months, oh, I want to go into a nursing home, I want to go to an ambulance. Like, oh, no, definitely not, we're not doing that, forget that. And, you know, we have to really think about what they prefer, what they want. And we fought it until, like, for the past 2 months, my brother lived with her, and she did everything you can imagine to drive him absolutely crazy. So she ended up getting last Thursday, Friday, she was transitioned from Brigham and Women's to the nursing home. And so I really appreciate your story when you say that, you know, there's some things that happen and you have to turn that sadness into joy, because if you don't, it will just drive you absolutely bonkers, right? So that's something, and personally, I'm a licensed mental health clinician, so I help my other siblings, which there are 4 or 5 of us all together, to work with acceptance and being able to accept the process that we're experiencing, because it's difficult, it's very difficult. And just being very happy and sharing, like you said, whatever it is that they want to do, where they want to go, who they want to be, and just embracing it and walking in every day. Hey, beautiful, how are you? Even if it's a bad day, you know, who are you talking to? Whatever. It's not that kind of day today. But anyway, being able to embrace it. So I'm just really grateful. And nothing happens, like I said, by chance. It just, the other day I saw a Bad Guardian, which was like had me in tears at the end of the movie on Netflix, right? And that was just 2 days ago. And then now being here, you know, I really appreciate you helping me, first of all, giving me hope, and then guiding me through the process of having to deal with an elderly parent. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you again for those fantastic stories. I have a question specifically about the scars that define us. I'm curious about the frame of mind of the character when she's outside and she sees the water on the back of the truck and she chooses to try and take it. I thought, as I was watching that unfold, I thought, she's got options here. So I'm curious how you chose to go that direction with it.
I think she's in a state of crisis at that moment, and it's like, as we've seen from our latest film, and as we know, it's like your eldest probably can't be left unattended for so long. So she knows what he needs. She needs this water to be able to wash him so that he can be clean. And so in this moment, there's nobody around. It's like, okay, here's an opportunity for me to kind of solve all my problems. You know, what do I do? It's like she has just a moment of just, I just gotta go get it. And it's just, I think it's just in these times, it's just, you just have a moment of just having to just have to just go for it. And I don't think there's really no rhyme or reason. There's no right choices in the act of caregiving. It's like you kind of have to just go out of your way and she went out of her way to do this, and whether it was the right or wrong thing, she had to make that choice. And it was told to her at that point that this is something that is being given for everybody, and she's able to learn through this moment that what was going on. But it's like, even when she came back, she she should have been here, but it's like somebody could say, oh, what was she supposed to do? Like she needed the water, or she could have left him alone. It's like she was in a no-win situation at that point, and it's like she wasn't battling against herself, she's battling against a system that's already failed her, and that is what is creating her to make these decisions in that aspect.
We have time for one more question. Oh, two. Really quick.
I think a lot about courage and different definitions of courage, and I think caregiving is a good definition of courage now. And I wondered if you would talk about your relationship with your brother and what you noticed, because he doesn't take to the caregiving in the same style or in the same moment as you do, but perhaps he evolves through your family's journey, and it's such a example of all of us are walking our different journeys, but we're trying to do something collectively and in relationship for whatever crises we may face. And I just wonder what you could offer about that when your brother is walking in a different stage or place, and you're being called your brother. I don't know.
That was my favorite thing too. So my brother, I love putting him in the film and using him in my comedy because I feel like he is the voice of most people. And he was the voice of myself when I first saw my daddy like that. I was in complete denial, if that makes sense. Because I did not believe that my daddy was really confused. I took him to like a neuropsychologist. I was really trying to not accept that he had this. So I understood why my brother was like that because they have the same name, they look alike, they spent every weekend together since I was a child. So I was more so trying to like, at first I got him like, you don't have to be me, you just be you. But then I was like, okay, you making my daddy mad acting like that. You're gonna need to actually stop being yourself because he's not who he used to be. And if you're gonna be around him, you gotta be okay with that. Like, he not daddy that can help you anymore. But if you just listen to him and go along with him, it'll be easier. So you're not trying to argue with him about what time it is and tripping him up. And so it took a few times for him to just kind of be like, okay, this is my daddy. But after a while, my brother was typically okay with it. That's why in the scene, you hear him saying like, daddy, then he like, melt him off. Because we knew after a while, he wouldn't respond to him if we said daddy. Because we don't know how old he thinks that we are. But if I say Milton, he's like, yes, you know what I mean? Like, what do you need? So after a while, when my brother would see like the different responses, if you go along with my daddy, you get a better response when you're dealing with him than how you're trying to deal with him as you're his son growing up, because he's changed, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, nice to meet you, both of you. My name is Elizabeth Thomas. I just graduated from Howard University, got my bachelor's in film and TV. Thank you. So watching this was really inspiring for me, both of your films. I'm trying to film, direct my own short film this summer regarding mental health, specifically in the Black community. So this really touched me. Both of your films were extremely powerful. I would say I'm not usually a documentary person, but this, like from start to finish, it had me captivated. Like I was sitting on the edge of my seat. I felt like I was physically in this world that you allowed us to be a part of. So I just wanted to make that comment that was really powerful. And I had my moments where I was choked up and I'm like, okay, I'm wearing makeup and going somewhere after this. Calm down. But yeah, so it's just very inspiring. I think just a little question I have, and this is like a very broad question, but just being kind of like making film on your own, and especially like a Black filmmaker, you might not have all the resources that other people may have. How do you, like, even if you have an idea, it's so hard to like start, like execute your plan. So how do you start, and where do you start?
Can you answer quickly because we have to we have to be out of this theater in literally 10 minutes.
Okay.
But this is such an amazing discussion. I need to shut it down.
What's your are you trying to stay in this area? Where are you trying to go at graduation?
Well,
mean, I think the first thing is the big thing about filmmaking, especially as a black filmmaker, is that you have to have a strong community. So that's your classmates, that's your friends. A lot of these films that are produced are people that have producing teams that have been with them. A lot of people, they don't really want to just hop on a project. They want to be able to grow with somebody and see the vision, and that allows them to take risks, and that helps you out on set because people trust you. So I think the first thing is to have a community, and then wherever you want to be at, whether it's Boston, New York, or LA, you want to start growing with your community and looking at grants, looking at, I'm in LA, that's still independent. There's all these things where you can kind of grow your network, go to the labs, continue to write, just get your work out there. And because at the end of the day, it's always going to take money. You're going to always have to take a risk. Like for my last film, me and my wife took out a business grant, and we ended up winning some awards, played at a couple Oscar qualifiers, and then we won the Panavision grant. I wouldn't even be able to make this film if it wasn't for the Panavision grant. So it's like every little film has a little seed that goes further from there. And so like I have ideas from this film. So I think it's just a totality. There's not one thing, but you still have to have a strong community within your friendship circle or your people that you go to school with or anybody. And I think that's really how you can kind of grow it from there.
I'll just tag on and say the same thing. From somebody that did not, I went to school for communications, I went to school for speaker. But I would say I started meeting people within the film industry, and each time I met somebody, I would join an organization. It's always an organization for like female, non-binary, people of color, something like that. So I joined a lot of organizations like that and would just show up at people's stuff. Like, do you need help? Like, yeah. But helping people really put me on to a lot of different people. Similar to them, I got a grant from Black Public Media when I haven't been able to finish my film without it. But it put me in the room to be amongst other people. And I know this is gonna be crazy. Be nice. I know that's crazy. But as friendly as I am, I make so many connections with so many people. Cause I'm just nice. I don't think I have it in there to be mean. And last thing I said is my mom's here. I just want to shout her out. My mom.
Yes. What an amazing film, both of you, and Gloria as well. Thank you so much. We can continue this conversation at the Colonnade Hotel. There's a reception there following that, so join us over there at Lucy. Brilliant. We are so excited to take this journey with you into the fall when the Wellness Collaborative is going to be doing a series, but we literally have to be out of this museum inside